Well, good afternoon. My name is John Hendren. I am the principal story architect for PDK International, which in plain speak means I do marketing and public relations. It's my pleasure to have you. We have a couple of my colleagues who will be joining me today. We have Debbie Weaver Balough and Lisa Rollins, um, two experts in the field, and I'm so glad they're here to give you some information about learning by doing. For those of you not familiar, Educators Rising is a national career and technical student organization run by an organization known as PDK International. PDK International was founded in 1906. We've been around a long time in the support of educators. And this past year, we just celebrated our 10th year as Educators Rising, helping young people in secondary grades from middle and high schools to get into teaching and education careers. So I wanted to start our conversation um, and approach the kinds of work-based learning experiences that you can develop as you develop a CTE education and training pathway and that supports the development of future teachers from the students you have in your district. Well, there are many components to building a pathway. We wanted to highlight here what we call the three foundational elements. And the first one would be important to building any CTE pathway, and that's great, high quality instructional resources. The second thing would be high value learning experiences, and that is the bucket where we'll talk about work-based learning. And the third is something a CTSO brings to the table. And for us, we get really excited about the community that we can build and offering students opportunities for competitions and contests. Our team assembles every summer to put on the Educators Rising National Conference, where we actually get to meet some of the brightest students who are members of our organization. And I would think of this, for those of you that like to eat, and I yet to meet somebody who doesn't like to eat, the high quality resources is like having a really great cookbook in your collection. The high value learning experiences would be having, Gordon Ramsay at your side, hopefully not yelling at you and guiding you through the process of how to make a really great recipe. And then the community and competitions is like being able to share what you've learned with other people to get feedback and to sort of network about food and cooking if you needed that comparison there. So one of the first things I want to talk about in the bucket of high quality instructional resources is great curriculum. There are schools that start our program as a extracurricular type activity, right? You don't have a fully developed program, but you realize that you want to be able to support students who may be interested in a future education career. For those building a pathway, you need curriculum. You need the content that you're going to teach the students. And while some administrators may think, oh, this is easy, any teacher could teach this, you usually haven't been put in the situation of replicating the experience that you had when you were going through college, if you went through a traditional program, about learning how to teach. For those that don't want to go through the process or expense of developing your own curriculum, Educators Rising does offer a supplemental resource that is available for subscription that we call the Educators Rising curriculum. And I'll just note it is optional, but it is really well done. We get a lot of feedback from teacher leaders who are using this product who tell us that it is a strong resource for them. And one of the things that makes it so strong is its flexibility. We've built out a full 2-year program with our curriculum, but it can be altered and modified to work in up to a 4-year program, or for those that want to use it outside of an official CTE program, it can be used to supplement some of those activities that you may be doing in your school, such as job shadowing, to give kids exposure to the different careers available to future educators. One of the things people ask us is, what does it look like? What I've put on the screen here is one of our single day lessons. We've organized the lessons in 1-day lessons and then 3 to 5, depending on your school schedule. The difference would be The 3 to 5 day lesson would have a lot more content in it. We distribute these as PowerPoint decks, and as long as you're conversant with how to deal with PowerPoint, you can alter these, modify them. You can put in local content if you want. You can put your own resources in there. We even have teachers who, put these in like flip charts if they have a Promethean or Smartboard and use them that way. In addition to the PowerPoints, you get access to student guidebooks, which are PDF resources that students can use, kind of like interactive notes. And then the second piece of that, this past year, we added to the product a digital assessment platform. And every lesson that you're going to find in the scope and sequence when you purchase our curriculum is aligned to that digital assessment platform. And so if you're worried about developing assessments for all these, we've taken care of that for you. And I'm getting a message that my screen is not visible. Debbie, can you see my screen?
I sure can. Yep.
Okay, good, good, good. The other thing that comes with becoming an Educators Rising teacher leader, if you go to our website and you say there's a link at the very top right that says you want to start a program, you can start a chapter in your school with the understanding that you have at least one teacher leader, somebody who wants to lead the program, and then at least one student. And when you sign up, the only cost to that are a student dues fee. Our national dues are $15 per student, and then some states have state dues to support the activities going on in their states. We have affiliation agreements right now with 39 different states and regions. So chances are that there is a presence of Educators Rising in your state. When you log into our membership portal, you're going to have access to a treasure trove of resources that will help you as a teacher leader to get started in the program. And these include resources for how to do teaching practicums, which is the work-based experience we can give students as part of their exposure to exploring future education careers. So work-based learning, this falls into the bucket of those high-value learning experiences. We think the high-value experiences give students the deciding factor whether they want to continue and explore a future career in education or not. And frankly, while we would love every single student who joins your Ed Rising chapter to go in and become the next great teacher, for some, it's not going to be the right fit. But CTSOs in general give students those real world experiences to discover whether this is the path for them. And of course, when you find students who go into those experiences and say, oh my gosh, this is so incredible, you're going to be their biggest cheerleader and their biggest support in your position within your school district. I want to share with you 7 principles that the Jobs for the Future put out that really help define what a very high quality work-based experience looks like. And one of them you're going to see on there is that students get paid. And we realize that that's not probably where you'll start in your program. This is something that many schools, after they develop a program, they get better at it, they get more students involved, then they start looking for those opportunities around apprenticeships or paid internships. We are just at the national level, have been working with South Dakota and Maryland as of late. 2 years ago, we got a note that we received a Department of Labor grant where we're able to see what that looks like in these 2 states. But I just got off the Zoom with some of our friends out in Renton, Washington, and they've been at this. I think they started the program back in 2008, and they're at the point now where they're writing grants and getting money to be able to pay some of their students for the work-based experiences that they're offering in their district. If you'd like to know more about that, we just put out their interview in our podcast, which is called There's Power in Teaching. And you can search for that through Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We can even put the link in the chat for you in a moment, where you can access that interview with Carla Smith, who leads the Teacher Academy program out in Renton. Just to give you another idea of how they are aligning themselves to a high quality experience for their students. The last thing that I'll note is, again, the contribution of what you get when you join a CTSO that's solely focused on developing future educators. As a career and technical student organization, we offer additional experiences that bring your students outside your district and in contact with other students interested in education professions through our conferences, competitions, and our contests. This summer, we anticipate around 3,800 students at our national conference in June who will represent the strongest students from across the nation. The chance to interface with these students is, for all of us, I think, a magical experience, especially when you hear about their passion and their inspiration to both help and teach others in the future. We recognize also that getting started can be daunting. We recently just put out the Grow Your Own Playbook. This is a free resource. If you have registered for this webinar, you will get this in a follow-up email tomorrow along with the recording. If you're listening to this as a recording, you can go to the front page of our website, educatorsrising.org, fill out the form, and this will come to you through your email. We don't want to scare anybody about starting a program, but there are some conversations that should take place, right? In many cases, we have a teacher who's like, I want this program in my school. I want to inspire the next generation. And so, while you could go to the website, you could sign up, you could basically start a chapter overnight. We would like you to think about talking to not only your school board, but your district leaders, see what your community needs are so that you can tailor the program for your needs. Many folks who start an Educators Rising program anticipate that the students who graduate from that program are going to come back and work within their district. Well, I'm really excited to announce now our special guest, Debbie, who I mentioned, who is on the call. I'm going to pass the baton to her, who's going to share a little bit more about how districts are implementing work-based learning. I'll tell you that she is our national implementation manager. And as you come on board with our curriculum, she's going to be one of the first people you see. She's bubbly. I love working with Debbie. She has so much experience and wisdom to share, and we are so lucky to have her. Debbie, I'm going to pass the baton over to you and take it away.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, John. And trust me, um the feeling is mutual, my friend. It is amazing working with you and everyone on this team that is so passionate about this work that we do. We're teachers by trade. We've been doing this a long time. We come from the trenches ourselves and we loved it. We love working with kids. And like John said, the highlight for us of the year is getting to go to conference and work side by side with the students who are the passionate leaders of their Educators Rising programs. But I have to say, for the students, it is also the highlight of their year to go to conference, equaled only by one other thing, and that is clinical experiences. When we talk to students about like, what do you love the most? They will say, I love getting out there and getting to work in classrooms and do observations and be able to be an assistant to teachers. And that's what clinical experiences gives them. Because remember, the students who are in your program, these are students who have hearts of service. So if you cannot give them opportunities to serve and to be out there being helpers, it's going to be really challenging for them to want to stay in the program. But if you give them opportunities to be side by side with the mentors that they're looking up to, they want to go into this work. This is the way that you're going to not only better prepare them for their future careers, but also to inspire them to stay with the program, learn more about it, and like perfect their craft even before they get to college. So when we're looking at clinical experiences, we kind of can look at a lot of different models. And the biggest thing I would love to say to everyone here who's listening is if you are freaking out about like, I know I need to do this. I know I need to get clinical started, but I just don't know where to start. Do something. Do anything. It is the most important thing is to not go, well, I'm not sure that I can get kids into classrooms 2 days a week. You don't have to do 2 days a week. You don't have to do 2 days a month. It really can start as small as, maybe one day a month getting them out into a classroom to observe and then using opportunities within your classroom to talk about those experiences. And then as you're able to grow that to more opportunities for them to be working in classrooms, that's fantastic. So I just wanted to like get that out of the way early because I think a lot of people think they're going to have to come right in and go full blown into this huge, model that might be really overwhelming. So the way that when we were kind of looking at like the typical model though is that you'll start in the beginning by just preparing them for going out into classrooms. That is equally as important as releasing them into the classrooms. They need to know, what are they even looking for as they're there? What sort of guiding questions will keep their thoughts focused on the work at hand while they're there. So from preparation, they move into observation. Now they're being released into classrooms. They get to observe some great teaching actually happening, and they're taking notes and they're giving feedback when they come back to class or to their chapter meetings. Then they'll move into a model of actually assisting in those classrooms, whereas before they might have just been like a fly on the wall, sort of standing in the back of the class and watching. Now they're moving into more of an assistantship role. And then ultimately the goal will be to move them into an internship or an apprenticeship where they actually get to even take over elements of the class, leading small group discussions, leading even an entire lesson. So this is sort of the trajectory. So what could that look like? For many of our programs where they're starting and they say, well, I only have my kids for 1 year. Okay, so then this might be the breakdown for them is that quarter 1, they're spent doing preparations for getting them into the classroom. Quarter 2 observing, quarter 3 assisting, and then by quarter 4, the kids are doing more of a full-blown pathway. But we do have other schools where they're like, oh, we have an entire pathway where like ninth graders come in, and maybe in the ninth grade year, they're really just doing preparation. They're learning about pedagogy. They're, obviously, building their background knowledge. And then by 10th grade, they're doing more observations, really getting out to do some of that. By 11th grade, assisting, and then 12th grade for many programs could even be an entire year. Like that's what their entire course is for them, is going out and doing the internships. Or it could look like something completely in between those two models. So just know that again, just doing something is what's the most important thing. When you're in the point of doing preparation, which again, for some could just be a week or two or a quarter, or it could be a full year, you're going to need to have some resources. Obviously, as John mentioned earlier, we do actually have at Educators Rising curriculum resources. So that's kind of what I'm able to show you, but you may have your own, and that's wonderful too. You also may have some that are required by your state, by the frameworks that are handed down from your district. So in whatever capacity that you're able to provide some sort of enrichment prior to them going out into the classroom, the better. So that when they do go out into the classroom, they can say, oh, we had just talked about this classroom management technique and I saw it in action. I remember that we talked about this and I saw it happen. So this is a part not to be skipped. Making sure that they do get that like pedagogical background, some of that knowledge prior to them being released into the classrooms is super important to the learning experience. So again, like John mentioned, we have these resources. This is just a few examples of our slides. Actually, on this one, I was going to show you, John mentioned the interactive student notebooks. So they're like these companion pieces where the students get to either electronically, digitally fill things out, or they can be obviously printed as well. But they're companion pieces to this. In the preparation stage, though, I think what's also really valuable is to know that you don't always have to send the kids out to give them an observation experience. What you do need to have are really high quality teaching videos to be able to show them. That is something that does come as part of our curriculum resources as well. We have a partnership with National Board, and they've provided us with over 60 videos that they call the Atlas videos that are of real lessons that have been provided to them when a teacher has applied to become a National Board certified teacher. So these are a sort of examples of real classrooms experiences, but also what's nice with that is that the teachers are required with National Board to provide a reflective commentary. So we also have copies of the reflective commentary that go with each lesson. So the students get to truly see how the preparation, what went into preparing that lesson and sort of unpacking it to understand all the different components. We hear from a lot of our students that are like, wow, there's a lot more that goes into planning a great lesson than I thought. So we're like, yes, we are professionals. We have to take in so many different, different factors. We also have an amazing partnership with the Teaching Channel, and the Teaching Channel has given us subscriptions for all of our students and teachers to have access to over 2,000, I think it's up to like 2,500 now, videos that they can access to either see full lessons or lessons in part. And again, these are great ways to prepare your students for going into their clinical experiences. So now once you've got like your plan of how you're going to teach them the pedagogy prior to releasing them. That could be that you're doing on some weeks an entire 5 days of going deep into pedagogy, giving them some project-based learning activities, some lesson assessments. Then it could be that you move into like a 3 day model where you're doing some lessons followed by some assessments, and then maybe even just a 1 day lesson with an assessment. And the other days are then freed up to start building in these clinical experiences so that now you have these holes in your week that you can fill with these really rich learning experiences. So to give you an idea what clinical experiences, what could be a typical model, I think it's cool if you can actually look at a real school. Like this is one of our clients in New Britain, Connecticut. It's a middle school at that, which is pretty, innovative that their pathways start as early as middle school there. And this is what they provide to give those middle schoolers an opportunity to start living the teaching experience, like seeing it and assisting and whatnot. So in September, they start their students with observations where the students are going to get to spend time observing different classrooms. Then they start their first rotations in October and November, where for those 8 weeks, they are going to work with a teacher. We'll call them Teacher A. They're going to have this clinical experience, but they work with Teacher A. They get a chance to actually see that teacher in action regularly throughout October, November. Then they move to a second rotation with a new teacher, Teacher B. And this is it. And you'll see in just a second on the next slide the different levels of where these teachers come from. They move into their next rotation for 2 months, where they then get to work with Teacher B. Then they get a third rotation with Teacher C, and that's in February and March. And then in April, it's a reflection time. Now they take all of these different pieces and they actually build out a presentation for their administration at their school of what the experience showed them and how it helped to open their eyes to some different things. So again, in that observation month, it's like 4 45-minute observations that are happening over the month. So if you can imagine, let's just say that that's one a week, right? So they have one time a week they get to go and do an observation. Then they move them into discussion groups to talk about what they saw, what sort of things this brought up for them. And it's to develop some skills, like talking about, let's use the curriculum. Let's see what students are learning, what best practices are evolving from these observations. Then when they move into their clinical experiences, which is October through March, right? So this is 3 different rotations. In their school, they use this as on Thursdays. On Thursdays, there's 70 minutes where they're released. There is a supporting teacher that sometimes will go with the students as well. The students will be recording and cataloging their experiences, keeping a portfolio of what they are taking in. And then they do, each month, they do monthly reflection essays to go along with what they have taken away from those experiences. So in the first rotation, we've got a lower elementary, so they're going to get to work with a K through 2 teacher. After they move through the October, November, and now they're into the December, January, they'll move to the upper elementary, working with a 3rd through 5th grade teacher. And then in their last rotation, they're going to see teachers who teach, say, for example, music, art, drama, foreign language. They get to kind of move through the different academic arts at that point. And then their end of year reflection will be that they get a chance to do a mini presentation to talk about what they did in experience, who they were working with, what the impact was that they saw, and what the impact was on them for their future as a teacher leader. And again, how this is going to help them steer their path for their future in education. So that's just an example of a middle school practice that we have also seen emulated as well in the high schools. But I thought this was just laid out really nicely. And I want to also give credit to the New Britain School District for putting this together. This was their show. They wanted to show like what their work looked like. And so we are so thankful to Slade Middle for this. Another way to look at things is this is from one of our amazing Ed Rising programs in Illinois at Crete Monet High School. Crete Monet High School is led by Principal Lamont Hollyfield, who is amazing, and his incredible teacher, Sarah Valerio. She has been working with Educators Rising for so many years, and the work that they do is truly something that you're like, write down the name of this high school, check them out. They have videos on the web. They've got a lot of resources that you can look at. But one thing that I want to mention before I click this slide to kind of show you them is that many times teachers will say, where are they getting funding for these things? How are they able to transport the students to different schools? Where do they get this? This principal, he has shared so many times with us that he's like, make sure to have great connections with your school leadership because school leaders do hear from, for example, superintendent might hear from different connections that he or she has that there is now a grant that's out. And then that goes out to the principals, and the principal sometimes will the teachers know. So in this case, this principal applied for a huge grant and won it. And he set up for his different pathway programs for educational pathways, even for them to have video recording equipment in the classroom. So these sessions that were happening were being recorded of the teachers working with the I should say when I say the teachers, I actually meant the students, but the students who were serving as teachers who are working in these classrooms were able to be recorded, and they're capturing this amazing portfolio data for these students. So all of that to say, definitely connect with your admins. They oftentimes know about opportunities to apply for these different grants and whatnot. So for his school, he wanted to make sure that they were establishing an immersive program. And I love that he uses the word immersive because he says we need to get our rising educators into classrooms. We're going to get our high schoolers not only interested in education, but having hands-on experiences. So in this, they've also partnered with Lewis University so that there's also a dual credit component to this as well. So anytime that you can look at your experiences of getting students out to observe and start collecting data and also being able to do some assisting, if you can partner that with them getting credit for these experiences, even better, right? So this is like again a full immersive program. And then what I think is so powerful is this last sentence: partnered with our early learning center, 5 elementary schools and middle school for observations and internship opportunities. And check out what they did. Oh, is it? There we go. The last slide was actually supposed to be some of their kids. Actually, these are 2 of their students at that program. But what they did with this program and what was on that next slide that disappeared is they were able to then set up paid summer internships for these students. So throughout the school year, their students will be able to do, like I showed you earlier, the typical like release for observations, release for some of those connections. But over the summer, some of them who qualify will be able to do paid internships. And these 2 students in these pictures are actually showing you those are their classes. So there is an adult, whether it's, again, another teacher's in the room, but they let them lead those summer bridge programs. So they're doing remediation programs with the students, but those are their kids, and they do get paid $15 an hour to run those programs. So their experience goes far beyond just like sitting back and kind of thinking about maybe I want to do this to actually getting not only to do it, but to get paid to do it as well. And on this page, you'll see here, we've got this link to clinical experiences resources, because to set up a program of this level, you have to make sure that you are planning this out to like, what is your connection with the mentor teachers that are helping with this? How are you transporting students around the county? What sort of documents need to be signed by the parents and the students and the teachers who are participating? And that is where it feels heavy. That's where when people come to me and they're like, Debbie, this all sounds amazing. You don't have to sell me on the idea of how important clinicals are, but where the heck do I start? This is where we take it and say, we got you. All right. So when you're working with our curriculum, one of my favorite sections of the curriculum is called the clinical experiences resources. So if I'm looking for resources on how to plan my clinicals, I can click here and I can start downloading all of these resources about, for example, some sample guiding questions. So remember I told you you want to send your students out in to do these observations, but you want them to actually have a focus. What would their focus be? Well, when I click on this, it takes me to a list of 3 pages worth of guiding questions that they can already have talked about with their teacher. So just to give you an example, it might be, all right, so to whom does the teacher turn when he's seeking instructional curricular resources or feedback? How do they manage classroom behavior? How often does the teacher connect with other teachers during the school day? So some of the questions that either the student is going to ask after they've done the observation or while they're in the room So, and this one was about collaborative planning. So sorry, I should have looked. This is about like how they work with other teachers in their school. But you can notice here, like if you're looking at the basics of instruction, how does the teacher hook the students at the beginning of the lesson? That's what I want to make sure that my students are looking for when they do their observation. So you'll have a list of all of these. I mean, it's 3 pages worth of questions that guide them when they go out to do these observations. Suggested clinical experiences activities is also a big part of the training that I do. Sometimes people think that it has to be that they are released into a classroom to do any sort of like apprenticeship work, but sometimes it can be interviews. Anytime that your students get to put on the lens of a teacher, and that is when they get to talk with other educators about the work that they do, that is considered also a clinical experience. Letting them put on the glasses of a teacher, so to speak, right? And look at the world through that lens. So, doing interviews of educators, actually assisting them in their classrooms, whether it's, taking attendance, proctoring exams, planning and teaching a lesson, even shadowing a student, like watching from that student's experience what their learning experience looked like. And then obviously getting into teaching internship ideas. So the reason, obviously, there are loads and loads of resources, even a clinical experiences log that we could work through. But I just wanted to give you an idea that you get support. You'll need support when you're first setting this up to know how to prepare both your rising educators, which are your students before they go out into the field, but also how to prepare the teachers who are going to be working with you. So, sample applications for students who are going to be participating. What does that curriculum, the clinical experiences guide look like? We've already created a guide for you, so you just have to change all of the elements that are in yellow, and you've already got like this is the attendance policy, this is the dress code when you go out into schools and do work. And I think it's important that when we're having these conversations that are all about like, go and get the kids out into the world and doing these clinicals, to talk about the logistical reality. And that is where I want you to know that we've got you. We've been doing this a very, very long time, and we've got templates and resources galore to be able to help you. Those were just 3 or 4 little things that I could click on quickly, but I wanted to just show you that we're prepared to help you get those set up in case you're a little bit nervous or not sure where to start. We've got you. So, we have any questions come in, John, or do we have anything that anyone
We
would like to
we
ask?
have not had questions, but you
Okay.
may just be super well prepared, having done this before. We'll wait here just a moment, but I'm going to throw up on the screen a quote from somebody I met today. This is kind of special. I actually got to meet Lindsay, which was she joined our team today to tell us more about what she's been up to in Illinois. She was the 2018 Illinois State Teacher of the Year, and now she works for the Illinois Education Association, leading the charge with future teacher preparation. And this quote that we captured from her really speaks to the quality of the program. And as I said, the 3 foundational elements that you need to grow a quality program are going to be the resources, the experiences that you give students, and then these opportunities to network and become part of the energy that, and you can see the picture here was chosen on purpose. This is from one of our national conferences, and you can see smiles on the faces of the of those girls who are exploring and competing to be in the role of an educator someday. Um, Thank you for joining us. Please be in touch. We've put our email in the chat, community@educatorsrising.org. We also have a QR code if you'd like more specific information or get in touch with us through a form rather than an email. Uh, you can get in touch with us that way as well. Looks like we had one comment on, and it's just a appreciation comment. So appreciate that, Lydia.
Awesome. And truly, everyone, clinical experiences is truly where it's at. So if you're like on the fence about it, please know that we're a resource. Like reach out, and we're happy to give more information about this. But anything that you can do, it will really inspire your kids.